Hi, everyone. I'm Holly Head, and I am so happy to be here with you this evening. I'm Director of Communications for Lipedema Canada, and I'll be your moderator for this discussion. It's the first time Lipedema Canada has had a chance to host a panel discussion, and we're excited to do it during Lipedema Awareness Month. This month aims to shine a spotlight on lipedema to raise the level of knowledge about this condition. Lipedema is a connective tissue disorder that affects millions of people in Canada and many more worldwide. This chronic condition is characterized by a symmetric buildup of fat, most commonly in the legs and arms, but can show up in other areas as well. Often the fat can feel like rice, peas, or walnuts beneath the skin. It can cause pain, swelling, easy bruising. The intensity of pain varies, as does a sense of heaviness in the limbs and fatigue. It can also lead to mobility problems and cause long-term mental stress. Lipedema Canada is a national not-for-profit organization with the mission to advance access to equitable healthcare for all Canadians affected by lipedema through advocacy, education, and compassionate support. When we looked at the subject for our first panel discussion, we decided to start with surgery because it's the most discussed area within our Facebook community. But what is lipedema reduction surgery? It's a specialized liposuction meant to remove lipedema fat while sparing the lymphatics. It is a medical treatment, not a cosmetic one. We'll discuss this a little later. Lucky for us, 3 of our board members, Angel Anderson, Emma Cloney, and Krista Ellingson, have each had multiple surgeries abroad. I am planning for surgery this fall myself, so I'm full of questions. We're also fortunate to have a lipedema surgeon join us, Dr. Boris Volstein, to give his perspective. But before we get started, I need to mention a few housekeeping notes. Surgery is a large topic, and there are so many areas to cover that we had to choose just a few for this discussion. We plan to host additional talks to give them more time. Also, surgery is one treatment option for those with lipedema. It is costly, intensive, and may not be viable for everyone. We also believe in promoting more conservative treatment measures, which work well with surgery, but also on their own. We plan to hold a discussion devoted to conservative measures in the near future, so stay tuned for that announcement. Next, please note that we will address questions through the comments section. We'll try to answer as many as possible, and the rest will be followed up in an email along with the link to this evening's recording. Also, Lipedema Canada is not a medical provider. Information and opinions shared tonight are not intended to substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please seek the advice of your physician regarding a medical condition or treatment before undertaking any new healthcare regimen. And finally, please note that Lipedema Canada is not affiliated with our guest speaker, Dr. Volstein, and none of our panelists have had surgery with him. Our format will be 1 hour from the patient perspective, followed by 30 minutes from the surgeon's perspective, then the last 30 minutes for a question and answer period. So let's get started. Angel Anderson is the president of Lipedema Canada. She is a chartered professional accountant with more than 25 years experience in private industry, provincial government, and health. She lives in Winnipeg. Angel, can you tell us a bit about yourself when you were diagnosed, your stage, type of lipedema?
For sure. Thank you for hosting this. So I was diagnosed in late 2020, so just about 3.5 years ago. At that point, I was already stage 3. I have types 3 and 4. So it's from the waist down to my ankles and then my arms from shoulder to wrist.
Tell us about your surgical history. How many surgeries have you had and where?
I've had 4 surgeries in Germany. My first one was the fronts of my legs where they removed 12 liters. Second was backs of legs, again, 12 liters. Third was arms and abdomen, and that was 12.5 liters. And then the fourth one was just in February, and that was my backside. So from my bra line down to the backs of my knees, a lot off the butt shelf. And that was a whopping 14 liters. Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Thanks, Angel. Thanks. Next up is Emma Cloney. Emma is the vice president of Lipedema Canada and a registered nurse with over 10 years experience in women's health. Emma became the first woman in Canada to receive coverage for her surgical treatments internationally under the provincial health system. Emma also lives in Winnipeg. Tell us about your diagnosis and your surgical history, Emma.
Hi, Holly. I was diagnosed in 2021 following a back injury as a nurse. And at the time, first I was self-diagnosed and then sought the treatment of international specialists to confirm my diagnosis, and then Manitoba doctors to confirm from there. I was diagnosed with stage 3, type 3 and 4, which same as Angel, is basically full body involvement from the belly button to the ankles, and then from the shoulders to the wrist.
Wow, thanks, Emma. Now let's talk to Crystal. Crystal Ellingson is a director for Lipedema Canada and is a certified teacher from Nova Scotia. She too has taken on the government in her home province. Tell us a little bit about your lipedema history, Crystal.
Also nice to be here. My lipedema history includes 4 surgeries, all of them very similar to what Angel and Emma have already went through. I'm type 3, 4, and stage 2. I discovered it in 2020, and it took about a year of conservative measures for my doctor and I to go through and her to feel confident in giving me a lipedema diagnosis.
Thanks. It sounds like we're in good hands talking to all of you. You're surgery veterans, it seems. We have several topics, and we're going to try to cover a lot of things in a short amount of time. So let's dive into the first one, navigating surgical options abroad. There's so much to consider when someone is thinking about having surgery, lipedema surgery, especially if they haven't yet done much research. I'm in the middle of it right now in preparing for my surgery. They have to think about the cost, the country, travel, clinic, hospital, the surgeon, so much. It's overwhelming. Angel, let's talk about why you chose to go abroad versus having surgery in Canada. And is this an inpatient or outpatient procedure?
Well, there is no surgeon in Canada currently who can treat stage 3 lipedema. There's no surgeons that are knowledgeable in the lymphatic sparing liposuction. So I only had the option to go abroad. I went to Germany, and I chose there because it was in a hospital setting. I traveled by myself for all 4 surgeries. So having that hospital, I stayed up to 7 days, was high priority for me. And I also needed the large leader removals. And so that surgeon handles large volume removals.
It's unfortunate that we have to go abroad for it for sure. Emma, patients who have lipedema, sometimes they have comorbidities. I believe that's the case with you. Can you tell us about this and whether when you're considering surgery, there are any special considerations?
Definitely. Well, when I started my surgical journey, I actually didn't know I had all these comorbidities. We found them as a result of my subsequent, now 7 surgeries. So I also have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. 50% of the lipedema population is hypermobile and is thought to consider that they may have Ehlers-Danlos. And with Ehlers-Danlos, there can be a cascade of additional things that cause problems in surgeries, including different reactions to pain medications, different reactions to anesthetic, idiopathic allergies, and a variety of other considerations, which are well above my pay grade. But it is important for us as patients to have the most comprehensive history that we can before we proceed to surgery, because this is not necessarily a simple surgery for everybody. It might be for some, but it's really important to be with a lipedema specialist and a doctor who understands all of the comorbidities, including POTS, mast cell activation syndrome, and the list, in fact, goes on.
There's so much to think about for sure. Crystal, what about leader limits? I know they vary from surgeon to surgeon and between countries, things like that. What do you know about that?
When I started doing research into conservative treatments and where to go from there, I was looking into surgery as a possibility, especially when all of those other things were not providing the relief I needed to live a full life. Excuse me. So what I did was start looking at what's available to me in my own country. So across Canada, there's a 5-liter limit on the amount a cosmetic surgeon can take from a person for a cosmetic procedure, which is understandable. So when I realized that it was going to cost a considerable amount of money, even if I was able to find somebody to do that type of procedure here, I knew I'd need a lot more than 5 liters as well. So that meant multiple surgeries. So then I started to do some more research, read some papers, who's been doing research, where do people work? Are they in a clinic or a hospital setting? In the United States, it seemed that their prices were very high. And again, depending on the state that you're going to and the doctor you'd like to see, that impacts the amount of tissue they'll be able to remove. So there's limits in that respect as well. And there wasn't very many at all who worked out of a hospital setting. And as somebody who's traveling for healthcare, I really wanted to have that security post-op and be in a place where if something did happen, I'd have access to other medical professionals who could take care of me in that type of circumstance. So the reason I chose to go to Germany is because they were doing it the longest. The surgeons there have been doing it for almost 20 years, could take a substantial amount, up to 10% of your body weight. And of course, every time you have a surgery and every time things are removed, that limit comes down, but they have so much expertise and larger limits at a lower cost per surgery. So it made the most sense for me comfort wise and because of the liter limits.
That makes sense for sure. Speaking about cost, lipedema surgery is not cheap, I think, by most people's standards. Angel, what ranges have you seen for costs, and what would that include?
So for me personally, my each surgery was about $22,000. So I spent $90,000 over 4 surgeries. And so that for me, I included everything. When someone wants to talk to me about cost, I'm giving them every cost that I incurred. So it's the surgeon and the hospital stay, airfare to and from Germany to Canada, hotels, taxis, Ubers, just all of the things, manual lymphatic drainage massages that are required post-op for 6 weeks. Yeah. And so one of the things that's important when you're considering what the costs are, one, you want to make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. Like when someone gives you their dollar amount, are they including the cost of airfare and all those items? But you also want to consider the liters that are removed. So if I had gone to a surgeon who could only remove 5 liters, like as Crystal was just talking about, I would have needed 10 surgeries because I've had 50 liters removed over 4 surgeries. So yeah, you need to compare total cost to total costs and also how much that works out to, like almost as a cost per liter.
And I think it's not the same either. For some include compression and things like that, different nights in the hospital, all of these things. So there certainly are a lot of varying costs. For myself, right now, with it looks for me between probably 17 and 20, and
Yeah.
that's in Greece. So it's a different country and different things included.
And that's Canadian. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, Canadian, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about let's talk about aftercare. Emma, what are some of the things people need to consider for this type of surgery?
This is a big consideration. And to be perfectly honest, it's a consideration I didn't give a lot of thought to until I realized how important it was after my first surgery. When we're talking about aftercare, we're talking about who looks after you immediately after you come out of the operating room and for the subsequent days that follow. And in a lot of the outpatient clinic settings, you're only in the clinic for about an hour after your surgery, and then you're out in the community. And when I say the community, I mean usually in a hotel room or an Airbnb, and you're usually being looked after either by your support person, like a friend or a spouse that you might bring with you, or in some cases, if you're in the States, you can hire private nurses or nursing facilities, which are incredibly costly. With the inpatient setting, including the surgeon that I saw in Germany, you stay in the hospital for 5 to 7 days and you're looked after by healthcare staff with a 24-hour on-call doctor and MLD provided in the hospital. The reason this is so important is that from a medical perspective, patients are the most at risk within the first 24 hours after surgery. And when you're traveling abroad and you are not necessarily an insured patient, you need to be absolutely certain that you have access to the care you need at the time you need it without having to get in an ambulance or go to a hospital as a result of a surgery. So aftercare should be as important as the selection in your surgeon, in my opinion. It should absolutely be who you want to do the surgery and what they're going to do to provide care for you after, like as an equal benefit. From my perspective, I wonder if the other panelists would agree.
For sure.
100%.
And we know a lot of women who have run into issues post surgery, right? And so to not be in a hospital setting when your hemoglobin is really, really low like that, I just can't imagine how scary that would be to be in a hotel room on your own.
It was scary. And it was my first surgery that mitigated. Nobody wants to visit an American hospital during the pandemic, and I unfortunately was one of the people that got to do that post-op because of a medication interaction from those comorbidities we talked about that I didn't know I had. And that situation got really dangerous really quickly, and it got really expensive really quickly.
Well, that brings me to my next question, Emma, about the risk and whether or not people should be thinking about medical insurance, and if there's a special kind of medical insurance for this type of thing, not just like travel.
Yeah, so this is another really confounded question in our system. So many of us know that when you travel for something like vacation, you can get travel health insurance. But there's a stipulation in nearly every travel health policy that I've encountered, which is that if you're traveling for what's called medically necessary surgery, which this is, you're not covered. So if you're traveling to another country and you think you have coverage because it comes with your benefits plan or you bought a package, you may be sorely upset to find out that when you have a surgical complication and need to get healthcare, you aren't covered. There are some companies around the world that do offer insurances of sorts. Sometimes they call them cosmetic insurances. And there is one in particular that was covered for lipedema patients and is, but not for Canadians anymore. I was fortunate enough to get access to them before they changed their policy. But at the current time, you cannot get insurance that we are aware of to go for medically necessary surgeries unless you are covered by the province. And the catch-22, of course, is that if you're being covered by the province, then you'd be covered provincially for your travel and also for the cost of your surgery. But because that is not currently the reality for almost everybody, it's a real consideration. You need to think about how much an ER visit would cost in a country like the United States if something were to happen to you while you were traveling for that surgery. So insurance is a big consideration in where you go and the aftercare you're going to receive.
Given all these aspects to compare, Angel, how are people choosing a surgeon? Like, where do they go for help with that?
For sure. I just want to add one thing on the insurance topic. So
Sure.
Emma was talking about insurance around the surgery itself and the aftercare, but I think it's also important to consider that you should have travel insurance. So if you broke a leg on the way to having your surgery, like something totally unrelated to your surgery, but you are traveling because of a surgery, often your travel insurance will not cover that. And I did find Manulife had an insurance policy that would cover me for non-surgical related issues while traveling for surgery. So I think that that's important that you look into, because like my regular Blue Cross coverage for travel insurance would not cover any incidents because I was traveling for surgery.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Similarly,
So, yes.
Similarly, my Blue Cross denied me coverage after I had to receive care in that hospital for the first surgery. I did submit the $50,000 US bill that I received for a 5-hour hospital stay because of an anaphylactic reaction. I did submit it to Blue Cross, and they rejected it, stating that because I was traveling for medically necessary surgery, that it was not considered an insured expense. So, insurance.
So was it out of pocket after that? Were you stuck?
It would have been had I not gotten a letter 2 weeks later that said I was approved by the province. And then the province ended up having to cover that bill because I was an insured patient. So, but that is anything related to my specifics about how I got coverage is going to be the topic of another call, because that by itself could be an entire. So those who are running to the comment section to ask questions about how did we do that? How did that happen? I promise we will do a follow-up call, but it cannot be this one because we want to get to the broader range of topics. But
no, I'll grill you on that for sure at another point.
thank you.
But so back to
Yes,
how do we choose a surgeon?
It's important to understand like your stage and how much lipedema you need to have removed. So that is important to understand. There's certain surgeons will not operate on certain BMI limits, even though that is classically an issue with lipedema patients. If you want to be an inpatient or outpatient, or, you know, what's a priority for you, the reputation of the surgeon, what kind of training they have, how much experience they have. The Facebook groups are amazing. So Lipedema Canada, there's lots of people that will post about, like, have you anyone gone to this surgeon? Like, what are your thoughts on them or whatever? And then there's the global surgery group, which has members from all over the world. And you can search in that Facebook group, because it's been around a lot longer than ours has. You can search for specific surgeon names in there and find out details on them.
Yes, good tip. I'm going to throw this one to you, Crystal. Once you've narrowed down your choice, should you have some consultations, and how would you go about doing that? What should you and how should you prepare for it?
Well, I discussed things with my healthcare provider first. We had done a lot of work getting into all of the conservative treatments. And then when we saw that this is where I kind of ended up after a couple of years of doing that, she wrote a letter saying that this would be the next step in treatment for lipedema for me. So having her on board enabled me to get all the tests I would need to go and see my surgeon. So different surgeons need to know different information to at least 2 weeks before your for every surgery. I need to have blood work done, and there are certain specific things they need to look into. So my doctor would write me a test request. So that was really helpful, having my doctor in the know what's going on, so she can understand what's going forward from here. Another thing is that certain surgeons will write a letter regarding that the treatment I've had, what sort of things that they may need to look for. And part of it was being compassionate and understanding, because of the toll that this disease has on persons. Like, it can be super difficult with people not listening, not taking it very seriously. That having that kind of communication between my surgeon and my home doctor was really wonderful, and to have that support all the way through. I know that's not the case for everyone, but the open dialogue and the understanding I had from my physician helped me kind of bridge the gap with getting the things I needed to go forward with treatment.
That's really good to hear. Thanks, ladies. I want to, we have to move along because we have so much to cover, and I know it's rapid fire. I appreciate you keeping your answers just tight, and let's go. So our next topic is to discuss your experiences with the actual surgery, what you experienced there. I'm sure it varied from person to person and from surgery to surgery. We heard a little bit already from Emma, some of the challenges. You mentioned, Emma, about having had surgery in both the US and in Europe. Can you tell us the differences between what you experienced for pre-op in those countries?
So preoperatively, specifically, my surgeries in the US occurred in an outpatient clinic, and my surgeries in Germany were in a hospital inpatient. Pre-op, it was pretty much the same. The surgeon would send ahead a list of tests that they wanted you to have, like Crystal was mentioning, and you coordinate with your family doctor or primary care provider here at home to get those tests done. So basic blood work, sometimes an EKG to check your heart, a chest x-ray to make sure that your chest is clear. And if you have any fancy extra conditions, they might order some extra tests. But generally, it's pretty straightforward. I did find that more tests were required for the US surgeon because they didn't have the hospital facility to do any of that testing when I arrived. I was surprised, of course, when I got to Germany, and they had wanted just basic blood work, but when I got there, they were prepared to do all of the tests that I had needed. So I remember that they do an EKG to check your heart, and at one point they did an ultrasound to make sure that you didn't have any hernias or anything, for specifically when I had my abdominal related surgery with lipedema. So that was my pre-op. But yeah, big differences between the US and Germany, for sure. Huge.
And probably the day of too. Crystal, I think you had all your surgeries with the same surgeon. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah. So was it I'm assuming there's probably a variation between you and Emma, since she had different surgeons for some of the surgeries. But what's it like the day of surgery? What can we expect?
Well, it is stressful. I have my husband with me. Having a support person is really important if that works for you. It was really important for me. Having him there really helped me feel more confident in the choices I've made, because until you're done and it's over, you really don't know how everything's gonna work out. It's kind of like when you're having a baby and you know kind of what to expect, and you've watched all the videos and you've talked to other people who've had it or have done that experience. But until you're done, it still feels like really unknown, because you really don't know what to expect. Some people, get really nauseated. I was really lucky. I was the person who didn't. We get our gowns. We make sure we have our compression ready to go in a bag so they can put it on after surgery. There's, heightened emotion. Definitely the first surgery, I was really nervous, and the second one I was as well. But the third and fourth, I was just like, let's do this. Let's go, because this is fantastic. Like that was my personal experience.
Angel, I think you said to me that until you were like ready to be wheeled in, you almost had not thought about it.
Now, once I made the decision to go, I just really never gave it any thought. And they were literally wheeling me to the OR, and I was like, oh, I'm in a foreign country and I'm getting surgery. And so I had like literally a 1 minute panic attack. And then like, not like anything extreme. And then I was just like, all right, well, what am I going to do? And just, yeah, went on ahead with it. So yeah, it's an interesting process.
And you, Emma, how was it for you?
Um, it was anxiety provoking. I mean, I'm a high anxiety kind of person anyway, which I found out is also a comorbidity of lipedema. But I think being a medical professional and knowing a lot of what some of the worst case scenarios are is not always the best place to be mentally before surgery. But I was fortunate with all of my surgeries that I actually had really, really incredible care teams in the nursing staff and the anesthesiologists. And they let me do a couple of things that were really helpful. So, wearing my AirPods, playing music, and having done meditation before I got to surgery. So, I was basically Pavlovian, like triggering that calm response in my brain, and asking them to let me listen to my music until they had put me under, and then also asked me for consent to put me under so that I felt like I had time to kind of prepare my body. One thing I can tell you as a nurse is that anesthetic is not like a sleep. It's not sleeping. It's basically a light switch. Your brain is on, your brain is off. And then when your brain goes back on again, whatever thought process or feeling you were having when you went under, you will continue to experience as you come up. And so going under in a calm and peaceful and willing state can really help handle that fight or flight response when you come up out of surgery. And so listening to music and letting the care team give me like the opportunity for consent really helped make me feel more calm and empowered. So that was good for all my surgeons and all my teams.
I'm going to remember that. I'm going to try to remember that anyway. What about I know everybody worries about this and wonders about it, the pain level after surgery. Angel, what was it like for you after surgery?
Well, I mean, immediately when you wake up, you're already on a lot of pain meds already, and they're really good. Like you have a medication that I think is like maybe every certain number of hours, but then they'll give you any kind of pain medication where we all were. If you are feeling any pain, they're definitely wanting to help you out with that. The anesthesiologist that I talked to, she's like, take all the pain meds. Like you're not doing your body any favors by being in any pain. It's not helping your healing process. And I thought that was just like really great advice. And so day one was pretty chill. Like I came out like calm, and I didn't have any nausea or anything like that. And the pain really started when you have to start dealing with getting up. Like, so when I was laying in bed, I mean, there's some pain when you have to like move around and adjust, but overall it wasn't that bad. But once you have to start getting up to go to the washroom and you want to start walking the next day, it's painful. That's where the pain really sets in.
Crystal, did you have to talk yourself into it, getting up and moving around?
I had a really hard time my first go round, getting up and around. I became very faint when I came around. I know that and toileting, oh, it's hard. It's so hard to take down your compression and pull them back up over, that really tender skin. It is super painful, but my mantra during that time was not no pain, no gain, but oh, you know what? It's been so long, I've actually forgot the mantra. It's so typical me, ADHD, which is also a comorbidity of lipedema. So it's like I described it as it feels like a burn. You know how a burn, it just stays sore and tender for like a long time. It almost feels like I was burned underneath my skin. That's how I would describe it. So ice packs afterwards were really helpful, staying cool. MLD and moving some of the fluid out of the tissues really helped with the pain. But yeah, I have friends in medicine and they're like, don't be a hero. That was their do not be a hero.
Yeah.
Take the pain meds when you need them. You won't need them. And it was amazing how quick it went quickly, the pain. Like you were sore for a long time, like maybe like 6 weeks, but every day got better. Like, yeah, every day got a little bit better. And the more you move, the better it got.
Yeah. My experience is a little bit different because about those comorbidities we talked about and having not normal reactions to pain medications. I found that my surgeries that were done in the outpatient setting in the US, not to frighten anybody, but that was some of the most painful experiences of my life waking up because my pain was not well managed because that particular team doesn't have a really good understanding about Ehlers-Danlos and more complex patients and complex pain. So I was really nervous when I got for my fourth surgery, and that was my first one with the German surgeons. I did talk to them about my experiences previously and waking up in a tremendous amount of pain. And very similar to what the others are saying, they basically said, don't worry, we will give you all the drugs. And I can tell you that in the hospital setting, when you're dealing with an anesthesiologist as compared to a nurse anesthesiologist or a nurse anesthetist like I had in the States, they have a full complement of medications there, and they are really able to manage pain effectively and beautifully. I have had, like I said, 4 surgeries in Germany, and all of them were profoundly different pain experiences. And I'm one of those ones who's always up within the first 5 hours of my surgery and trolling the hallways, trying to get things moving because that's the nurse in me. So definitely the first minute of walking, as Angel mentioned, it's like being in quicksand, and then it gets better.
Well, besides the pain management, what other post-op care might we expect, Emma?
So when I was in the US, there wasn't really a lot of options for MLD. I did look up a couple of therapists, and at one point I did go and see somebody privately there. But that particular doctor recommended a hyperbaric chamber, which was a really interesting experience. You basically go to this fairly expensive facility and they put you into what looks like a giant submarine, and you watch TV in your submarine. And from there, it's the hyperbaric treatment basically over oxygenates the tissue and helps reduce swelling. And it was like you could feel all your swelling kind of compress. It was a very interesting, weird, semi-claustrophobic experience. And so when I went to Germany, I was like, oh, I hope they have a hyperbaric chamber because I had gotten used to that. But in Germany, they have a fantastic system at the hospital where I was attending, where they actually have physiotherapists that come and give you daily MLD. You don't even have to leave your hospital bed. And so that immediate care was both really helpful and immediately starts to do that decongesting process. So that plus deep breathing and the walking was a really fundamental part of the aftercare that I received in Germany.
The hyperbaric is interesting to me. I'll have to ask you more about that for sure. I think many of us, go into surgery hoping that it will be the miracle we've been waiting for. It'll take away the pain and it'll make us look amazing. And of course, that would be fantastic. Let's talk about outcomes and expectations. Angel, what expectations should we have when it comes to lipedema reduction surgery? And were your own expectations met?
I tried to go into it without expectations. We are all so different. I'm also older than a lot of women that are having the surgeries. So I'm 51. And so just like how your skin can retract can be different as you get older. So I went in with not really any expectations at all. I'm super happy with the physical. I'll just talk about the physical side first, not the cosmetic side. So my legs are so much incredibly lighter. Like a year later, I still appreciate the lightness of my legs when I have to lift it up higher than like walking up the stairs. It's just normal. But like if I have to lift my leg up higher to get into like a tall truck or to get into the bathtub, like I still think consciously about how much lighter my legs are and just my mobility. I can walk so much more, and it's not a concern. My last surgery was on my backside, and so it was removing a lot of my butt shelf. And I have not had lower back pain since the day after my surgery, which is like, I hadn't really thought about it going into it. And just that relief of having that extra tissue removed has been amazing. I had daily lower back pain, like standing or sitting, just always. And that is gone. So physically, I'm so happy with my results. Cosmetically, I mean, I'm not unhappy with it. Like I'm not, I have lots of loose skin. So I am considering skin removal surgery. I actually have an appointment with a surgeon in Winnipeg this week just to start that discussion. I'm not considering skin removal on my legs. That's just not something that I can wrap my head around at this point, but I am considering getting on my abdomen and also on my arms some of that skin removed. There's a lot.
What about you other ladies? Emma, what were your expectations? Were they met?
I think I was pretty well versed for the expectations in some regards. So I was in advanced stage 3. And when I went for my surgeries, I had gotten to the point where I literally could not stand for more than a minute without excruciating pain. It sometimes felt like I was standing on broken bones. I was having a hard time doing any of the normal activities of daily living and had been put on disability from my work. So when I went for my first surgery, my expectations were to be in less pain because that was what unanimously all of the surgeons who I had consulted, that is what they talked about. The primary treatment here is to reduce pain and improve quality of life and increase mobility. And so that was what I was hoping. To be perfectly honest, there was a lot of questions around photos that you see online and results that you see online and liter limits. And as somebody who was living in a very large body, where I've now had almost 60 liters, 60, removed in my 7 surgeries, I really needed my surgeries to be high volume liposuction for lipedema, so lipedema reduction surgery. And I wasn't given direct or correct answers from the first surgeon. And it turns out that they had a more conservative liter limit that kept them somewhere around 5 or 6 liters, when in reality I needed to be having between 12 and 14 removed every surgery. So from that part of expectations, I was pretty devastated when I realized that I had gone under all of that pain and stress, like truly the mental stress of that was profound. And then to find out that what I thought would end up being at the time 4 or 5 surgeries turned out that now it's 10. Like by the time I'm done, it'll be 10. So as far as the expectations go from there, I started to have a better understanding of what you were going to look like absolutely black and blue from bruises. They don't hurt like normal bruises, though. It's a really hard thing to explain. It looks terrible, but it doesn't feel the way it looks. And then now that I'm at the phase where I've had 7 reduction surgeries and I'm headed into more of my skin excision surgeries, I don't have those beautiful legs that I saw on the internet. I have tons and tons and tons of extra skin, both from the Ehlers-Danlos and from how profoundly I was affected, that is going to be remediated here. And I think that that's something we should all be prepared for, is that a lot of us are not going to bounce or snap back. So it's okay to want your legs to look better, because that's a big part of the mental component of this disease. But the primary indications for surgery are to improve mobility and quality of life and reduce pain.
Well, with that, the changes that do happen, Crystal, what about body dysmorphia? Did you feel like that, or all of you? I'd like to know if you felt that way after you had the surgery.
Uh, no, I didn't. I didn't really look that much different, even after having 10 liters taken out of the fronts, or almost 11 out of the fronts of my legs in my first surgery. I was kind of blown away, and they did look deflated to me. But like, if I look down, they looked a little different, but people didn't really notice. It's funny. Because I always have my legs on Front Street. Like I'm always wearing short skirts, short shorts, and a compression. So my compression fit me quite well afterwards, but I noticed a huge reduction in pain. Just my pelvis was always being pulled forward. It was in a much more neutral position. My back pain disappeared. The pain to the touch disappeared. Like I had some new pain because when your pelvis is adjusted in that way, everything else kind of has to make up for it. But it was all stuff that was manageable and that could be done. Um, I am, jiggly and wiggly. I took some pictures for this. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I'm not able to put them up. But in the Way to Lipedema is my Facebook group. I have pictures from my surgeries in that particular group, and I post things as it comes. So if you just look up my name, I'm sure you'll find some pictures. And I'm going to post my most recent ones in the same outfit, which I'm wearing tonight, that I had my first photos done ever of my legs when they were really large, and they're on the Lipedema Canada brochure or pamphlet and on the website. And the difference, and you know what, didn't really notice until tonight, like they feel different, and they look saggy and they're still bumpy, but they're not painful to the touch. I can run up and down the stairs. I can play chase with my kids. I can do almost anything, and I'm not tired all the time. And I can get my blood pressure taken, and it's not excruciatingly painful. They can find the veins in my arms, they'll poke me 15 times. Like there's so many things that have improved in my life. That my jiggly arms they're not beautiful, but they work really well. And that I didn't have expectations. My mother has this as well. She lost a lot of weight and she's got very loose skin. And I always knew I was going to look just like her. So then here we are.
And you said you lost a lot, though. You had a lot taken out.
I had
Yeah, sorry, Emma did. And I was going to ask, what about body dysmorphia for you? How do you reconcile that?
So I didn't realize that I had it, but I had spent, okay, here's the fastest of stories. Until the time I hit puberty, just thereafter, I was incredibly thin, like the kind of thin that they tease, slide you under a door, ballet dancer, rides horses, swims, does all those things. And at some point, when my body changed dramatically after puberty, um, I had a pivotal moment where I saw myself on camera, actually in a bathing suit in my 20s. And I didn't realize that that's what I looked like. And that particular image got stuck in my head permanently. And so I continued with this knowledge that I lived in this very large, misshapen, lipidemic body. And as my body started to change, I actually wasn't able to even see it. I would still see myself in the mirror and in pictures through this lens. And it wasn't until we got really truly to surgery 6, after post-op surgery 6 and then post-op surgery 7, where I had one of those redefining moments where I saw a photo that someone else had taken, so one where I wasn't posed or thinking about it, and I didn't recognize myself in the photo. And when I looked and realized that my mental image of who I believe myself to be was now actually in line with who I actually look like. I'm not a small woman. I'm a tall 5'9", curvy glamazon, but I now look the way I feel. And I was so focused on how I felt as far as pain reduction. I mean, I didn't mention in the last segment, but even after my first surgery, I had a monumentous change in my mobility. which started with being able to walk the hallway at the aftercare facility. And by post-op day 3, I was able to walk almost 3 miles on the Santa Monica Pier. And that was from not being able to stand. And so even with lesser leaders and some other issues that I wasn't jazzed about, the efficacy of the surgery for me was still there. So as far as the body dysmorphia, it is a constantly evolving process. And I wonder what's going to happen as I have the lower body skin revisions to help with lymphatic flow, if that's going to sort of affirm where I'm at or maybe change it. I don't know. Like, we'll have to check back in at the next call and we'll talk about the dysmorphia then.
Angel, I think you said you were pretty happy with what your body could do. That was the most important thing for you.
Yeah. I'm not sure about the body dysmorphia. I've had a lot of fun shopping for new clothes, I can tell you that. So if you follow me on Instagram or Facebook, I have been shopping too much, I would say. It's really interesting to be able to shop in straight size clothing stores now and just to have so many options. I actually said to Emma, I had bought this skirt and I was tempted to buy another one. She's like, because when you're in the plus size clothing, when you find something that looks good on you, you want to buy multiples of it because you might not ever find that again. And she's like, you don't need to do that now. I was like, huh, wow, that was like a little bit mind blowing. So I'd need to chill out on the purchasing of new clothes because I'm finding so many things that look great on me and it's super fun, but like how many dresses do I need? Yeah, so I've been shopping and just like as I find like a new style because I do wear compression every day. So I'm always just looking for dresses and tunics. And now I've gone on to skirts so I can now do different top combos and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Nice, nice. We've talked about the challenges from making the decision for surgery, what to expect the day of, and have realistic expectations. So let's explore what might be some other challenges and considerations. Going abroad for surgery is no small feat. Crystal, what should people consider when it comes to traveling alone or with someone?
I think if you can travel with someone that you trust and makes you, can take care of you and you can talk to, that there's nothing better than that. I didn't know how much I needed to be taken care of until I was on that trip. My first surgery I don't think I could have done it alone. I could barely carry myself along a bag. I couldn't even think straight. I would have had to get taxis everywhere. And I'm a smart, educated woman. Like, I should have been able to take that on, but I didn't I knew it was bad, but sometimes you don't realize how bad it is until you're forced to do something that you don't normally do. And I couldn't travel. The only reason I traveled was for surgery. I think that if you're going alone, if your mobility is heavily impacted and you're leaving for high volumes, it's going to be tough, like really tough. It depends on your mobility and your comfort level. But for the first 3 surgeries, I had my husband come with me, and it brought us closer. I was cared for in a way that I just didn't know he was even capable of. Like, he's lovely, but in my last surgery, I went by myself. But because I had all those previous experiences, and my last one, I was pretty independent. When I went, I was able to navigate the transit system. I was able to do it on a budget. I went biking, and there's lots of fun things to do when you're feeling better and can participate. So planning to, as your surgeries progress and as you feel better and are capable of more, there's more parts of this whole experience that you can enjoy when, the first trip or two is absolute torture between the swelling and the unknown and it's heavily taxing the first couple of trips. Angel, hats off 1,000 times.
Did you go by yourself, Angel?
I did, yeah. All 4 surgeries I went by myself. And some of my biggest tips if someone is you're saving a lot of money, by not having to pay for an extra airfare and a hotel room while you're in the hospital, right? Like those costs really add up. For me, that just wasn't an option. And not the money part of it. I just didn't really have somebody that I wanted to challenge them with that, I guess. But definitely, like if you are going overseas, absolutely, when you're booking your airfares, arrange for wheelchair transportation, wheelchair assistance at the airports on your way home. That is life-saving. So like standing and queuing in all the different spots in the airport, like that would have just taken me down for sure. But having the wheelchair assistance at every airport that I was at, super helpful. I also, every time they're in like the global surgery group, and then there's one specifically for the surgeon that we went to. Anytime I heard somebody was gonna be in surgery the same week as me, then I added them to a group chat, and so we kind of got to know each other before, and we could like kind of gear up, like, oh, I just went for blood work. It's like, oh, that reminds me, I need to go get my blood work done. Just like still chatting, and then we had that connection while we were there. We were laid up in bed, couldn't be out and about visiting, but we could be messaging each other, just checking in, how are you doing? Or when you were able to walk, it's like, does anyone want to go for a walk? Just to get each other going. And everyone's partner was just like kind of took me in also. Like, so whether it was someone's spouse or someone's mom or whatever, like if they were going out to get pick up takeout to bring, they would pick up for me also. So I really made good friends there, and yeah, keep in touch with a lot of people from all over the world, which is pretty fantastic.
Wow, that's nice. Nice to hear. What about Angel, while you were there, though, especially by yourself, what about language barriers? Any issues with that?
All of the surgeons speak English really well, so that part is not a concern. Some of the nurses, their English is great, some like barely anything, but you're not asking for a whole bunch of things. Like they know what pain medication means, like when you need that, or it almost was like a bonding moment when you had to try and figure something out between the language barriers, that you became like closer to that nurse. And Google Translate is such an amazing app. Like you can speak into it and it'll translate it to German, or you can type and it'll show them your phone, and they do the same also for you. Or you can use the camera. So if you wanted to translate the dinner menu to English, or like a takeout menu or whatever. So that is like a very useful app. But I didn't run into any actual challenges. Yeah.
What about you ladies? Any issues there?
I learned some German. Like, when German comes on, like my TikTok, or if I hear it on TV, like there's this weird sort of recognition that's happening, whereby I don't really have a brain for languages, and so it's one thing that I thought was interesting is that conversationally, it doesn't seem to matter what language someone is speaking when we use the same tone and body language and inflection. We communicate in a lot of ways that aren't just the words that we speak. And I found that universally, the healthcare team in Germany, even the night nurses who kind of universally didn't speak enough English to not use Google Translate, you learn the basics, and was able to navigate that. One of the challenges that you were talking about people who traveled with companions and without. I went with companions for 6 of my 7 surgeries, but on my 4th, so the first one in Germany, I had time constraints and I went on my own. And I thought physically I would be fine, and I was, but mentally I was not okay. And what I hadn't prepared for is if you're a really social person, if you're a high anxious person, there can be an incredible amount of hormones and floods of emotion that happen after surgery. And having your support person isn't just about meeting your physical needs. I discovered that I really need a safe and comforting person who is my person, to help me stay level and on my feet mentally. Because physically, I feel like I can do almost anything if I force myself through it. It's really hard to force yourself through something mentally. So I definitely agree with Angel's point. It is more costly to bring a companion, but you need to know what kind of person you are and what your needs are. And so for me, I knew that for me, it just wasn't an option to travel alone. So that was a consideration more than the language barrier for me.
Well, I did want to ask from each of you what your, in a few words, what your emotional reaction to the surgery and in the aftermath of it was. Crystal, why don't we start with you?
it it was emotional, but in a like a really positive way. Um, the things I could do so quickly that I couldn't do before, and the care that my husband gave me and the support my family gave me. Um, it's just to look after my kids to enable me to go on this type of trip for surgery. Like this is not something a lot of people experience. But the appreciation I had for the team and everyone who cared for me there, it was such a unique experience because that care, I haven't seen it here in a very long time. And there's a whole host of reasons why, and I understand it from all angles. But when somebody understands exactly what you're going through and has seen it many times before, and you meet the other people who are going through the same things as you, and like Angel said, you bond with other people while you're there, giving high fives in the hallway on our way to the the third surgery, just I was just so appreciative for the skill and the expertise because it's life changing, 100%.
Angel, how was it for you?
Everybody's so different emotionally. So I feel it feels weird to say this here, but so I am a widow. I lost my husband 8 years ago. And so for this emotionally, like I've been through way worse. And so I like didn't even cry with any surgery. Like anytime I was over there, I was on my own. It's fine. I've traveled on my own quite a bit, or just even traveled in general. And so that part wasn't overwhelming. I had been through worse things emotionally, so it was fine for me, but that's definitely not discounting anybody's experience at all.
Emma, you often say you're a big ball of emotion, so so
Yeah,
how was it for you then? I think you
I'm
alluded to
definitely.
some of it. And was it different, I guess, after different surgeries, given your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm a feeler of all the feelings. So if anyone wants to feel feelings, you just come right here. Um, my first surgery, I was so amped up from applying for coverage and fighting with the province and being literally depleted in all of the ways emotionally and spiritually a human being can be depleted, including having managed the chronic illness um, relentlessly. And I was so exhausted from having to qualify my existence. Every appointment that I went to with every doctor who wasn't in my lipedema team, um, there was always the explaining what your lipedema is, qualifying that you're not actually obese, trying to explain to them why, even if they agree that they know what lipedema is, but shouldn't you just get gastric bypass anyway? Like, you get to the point where, as a patient, you become so hyper vigilant and so defensive. And I think the biggest emotional experience for me was in all of the experiences with care teams for lipedema, both in the US and Germany, arriving at a place where they know more about your disease than you did. And as what they call an expert patient, so someone who spent a lot of time learning about your own illness so you can know yourself, but also educate your care providers, there was this handover of trust that had to occur. And I think that's what caused the just exhausting amount of emotions, was realizing that you were in a safe space where your doctors actually knew and understood your condition, where you didn't feel gaslit. Um, and then when you could actually ask questions about your care and wait for an answer, not wait for the punchline. So for me, that was the biggest emotional levy. So as I moved through my surgeries and I got to trust my teams, whether they were in the US or in Germany, um, my anxiety level decreased, not because I wasn't going to experience pain, but because I was going to experience trust. So the place that I'm at now is that my next surgeries are going to happen in Canada, because I'm moving into the skin excision portion, which doesn't specifically have to be done by a lipedema specialist surgeon. And so that anxiety is back. It's all the way back because I have to go back to being the expert in the room. And that's a scary place.
I can imagine. So
It is.
we're
I
at
so appreciated that, not having to justify our condition, like, and just they just knew and they got you, right? Like I just felt so comfortable with the medical care, because they knew way more than I did and
mhm.
didn't argue with me on it. Yeah, I really appreciated that.
I think we're at the top of the hour. I want to thank you so much for sharing everything that you have. Do we have our guest here? We do not. So, what shall we do? Should we take some questions?
Sure. Yeah, we're waiting for Dr. Golston to join us. We're in different time zones. I'm just checking my email in case people are wondering why I'm looking from one space to the next. And so when Dr. Volston arrives, if he is watching the live stream right now, Dr. Volston, we are ready for you. So please come and join in here, and we'd be happy to add you to your segment. But yeah, there are some folks who just recently joined. So we have a couple of questions. So why don't we start with some of those? I think these will show up. Let's say yes. Testing.
Okay.
That was my test question. All right. Okay. So Carolyn is asking, how does one set up a consultation? I'm assuming that Carolyn is referring to how do you set up a consultation with an international surgeon? And the answer to that from most of our perspectives, because we did see the same German team, is that you can send them an email. And they also have a virtual platform where you can actually book a consultation straight away. They introduced that more recently. For many of the surgeons, it's you reach out to their offices and send them an email, and they'll set up virtual consultations. And I know that I have done both the paid consultations and the free ones. There seems to be some very wide variance in the prices that are being charged for a virtual consultation with a lipedema surgeon. So I don't know about you guys, but I paid as much as $500 US and then as little as none for international surgeons. What about you guys?
I did only the one consultation.
Oh,
Super
wow.
to say. It was great. Yeah, I was like, I'm cool. Let's do it. And so I did not see anything.
Okay.
I did more than one. I contacted a surgeon in Ontario via email, but I didn't meet the BMI restrictions at his clinic, as well as the cost for 5 liters was 20,000 Canadian. So that kind of took me off that list. There's a couple in the US that I was considering, but when I saw some of the price ranges, I just knew that wasn't going to be feasible for me. Then I reached out to 2 surgeons. The first one I spoke with had a fee, but when he saw how much I needed removed and how late stage I was, he referred me to another clinic where the consultation was free, so he didn't charge me for his time, but he was just, that was enough of a selling point, I guess, to it's just like, this is who you should see. These are all the reasons why he's an expert and I'm referring you to another expert. So he knew the large volumes. There's only a few people who can really do that type of work.
For me, I've had 2, I believe that they do charge now, but at that time I didn't have to pay, and one I did pay 50 euros.
That's a pretty reasonable amount for a consultation, like paying for a surgeon's time.
I agree.
Yeah. I think when the consults are getting into $500, $600, $700, $1,000 US, that gives me some heart attack anxiety, because that's really a get to know you. Like, that's not a commitment specifically to doing surgery with that particular individual. So something to consider. I like to shop. I think this should surprise no one. I think I consulted 7 or 8 different surgeons because I really wanted to meet everyone. I also found out similarly, I spoke with the surgeon in Toronto who at the time, early in my journey, I was like, oh, this person says they can treat lipedema. They're not a qualified lipedema surgeon, and they have a BMI limit. And my understanding is the price is now $30,000 for 5 liters of liposuction. I went with I know we're just shaking our heads. But the consults, so you can find surgeons, if anyone's looking on how do you find these groups we're mentioning, if you go to the Lipedema Canada website, there is on the front page under what is lipedema at the bottom, there's links to how you find the Facebook groups where all the surgeons are listed. You can also send us a message at Lipedema Canada on our Facebook and we'll direct you where you need to be. Should we take more questions while we're waiting? We're still absent a doctor. So, all right. Okay, So Erica is asking, Holly, I know you had your glasses on. Do you want to go ahead and read it?
Yes, I can read it with my
Okay.
glasses on. How many liters maximum can be removed in one surgery?
That's an excellent question.
Well, it
The
really
answer is it
depends.
depends. Everyone together now. It depends. Crystal, why don't you go ahead?
So it depends on where you're going, how comfortable that surgeon is, what limits the country or state or province has. Where I went, it was up to 10% of your body weight, but it depends on how you're doing while you're under anesthetic. So you have to remember that perhaps, you may think, and they have a pretty good idea, they do this a lot, how much they're going to take at any given time, around 10. Some people will get 15 removed in a single surgery. But if you are, um, under 200 pounds and maybe late stage 1, you might not get nearly as much taken out on one surgery because that could be really taxing on your body. And if you start to bleed more, like there's just so many things that can impact the amount taken. But yeah, it's consultations with different surgeons will give you more specific answers to that particular question.
And the 10% is based on kilograms. So if you weigh 120 kilograms, the maximum they could take, if they're following that 10% rule or whatever you'd want to call it. So if you weighed 120 kilograms, then they could maybe take 12 liters. The most I had in one surgery was 14 liters.
Yeah. And be wary if when you're asking surgeons, like this is just a word to the wise from my own experience. If when you're asking surgeons about what their liter limit is and they're really dodgy about answering that, that should raise a red flag for you. And you should really give some thought to why you're being given answers like, we'll get it all. There is no liter limit. That isn't true. That isn't true. And you can look these things up. If you're going to a clinic in a certain part of the world, you can actually Google. You can Google if there's a liter limit in that state or in that country. And you can also ask in the boards, because one thing I know about the lipedema community is we are great resources to each other. And don't be fooled by what you see on social media. Get good scholarly answers that come from a medical position that are based on your healthcare specifically, and not big rash generalizations. So, like Angel said, if you're not a large person, you should not be going into the surgery with the expectation of having 12 to 14 liters removed, because that would be not safe. It just wouldn't be. So you might not need to go to a surgeon who specializes in high volume if you weigh 130 pounds, but definitely have lipedema that needs treating. There may be options that are more suited for your particular needs. So similarly, if you live in a really large body, you should definitely be looking for surgeons who specialize in inpatient high volume.
Emma, I think you and I too were talking about there's a discrepancy or kind of some misunderstanding between some will say total liters, but they have to put a lot of tumescent fluid in you for the surgery. So what are we talking about here when we're talking about liters?
Yeah, so I was really hoping Dr. Bull shouldn't be able to answer this, but I'll also give it a go. So the wet technique for lipedema reduction surgery simply means that in order for them to do the liposuction, so the removal of the lipedema tissue, they have to fill the space where all the fat lives between your skin and your muscle with what's called tumescent fluid. And that tumescent fluid, they might put in liters upon liters upon liters of it. And its job is to basically soften the fat and make it easier to withdraw it. Okay. When the surgeons tell us how many liters they're taking, some surgeons include the total volume aspirate, or the total amount removed from the body, including the tumescent fluid. And so others will tell you, just the amount that was liposuction specifically to the lipedema, so the fat that was removed. And this only adds just confounded information on when we're told what liters were taken from someone. And unless you ask your surgeon directly, and this should be a consult question, like when we talk about how do you prep yourself for a consult with your surgeon, this is a great question to consider asking. When you tell me you remove 10 liters, are you including tumescent fluid in that? Or is that the amount of lipedema you removed from my body? So just more knowledge. Knowledge is power here.
We have any more questions?
Oh yes, we have more questions. And you guys keep hitting the questions into here, into the YouTube live stream for us. And just in case Dr. Volshin is saving someone's life right now, and we need to keep going with all of your questions. All right. Karina has a great question. Here we go.
Will
Holly?
skin retract after lipedema nodules are removed?
It depends. It depends.
I guess it depends on the person and the skin.
Yeah, it does. It also depends on the age of the person. Do you have hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos as well? In Ehlers-Danlos, like we said, 50% of us could potentially be hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos patients. So we have really stretchy, thin, easy to scar skin. That skin does not tend to retract very much. If you are older, if you lived in a larger body for a long period of time, if you were profoundly affected by your lipedema. When I say that, I mean, we're talking about really, really, really big, cumbersome limbs where your skin got stretched out really bad. So it depends means there is some skin retraction for all of us, some, but what it goes back to that expectations question is if you're hoping that after living with lipedema for 20 years of your life, even if you're a stage 2 and maybe still under 200 pounds, and you're wondering, is my skin going to snap back? We'll see. Give it a year, a solid year, wait till all your swelling goes away, and then you can sit and think about it, look in the mirror and decide, did it snap back enough? There's, I'm just thinking of the other point about the skin excision, but I'll hold that for a second. We'll come back. Others on the skin snapback question?
Mine is not snapping back. I can show you my arms if anyone wants to see them. So this is,
You got to
Show and tell
move it
time.
over.
zoom
Hang
out
on.
for a second.
Hang on, let me see if I can do that. Go, Angel, talk.
All right, I think you're showing. Oh, no, I'm showing. Okay, so on my forearms, oh, I'm backwards here. I can grab like a handful of skin on my forearm, and then on my, this is all loose skin here. So this is what I'm hoping with my surgeon appointment this Thursday. We'll talk about removing some of that skin. Yeah, and the abdomen also. That's one thing that's nice about wearing compression all the time is that the compression really sucks you all in. And so it is a lot nicer, but yeah, swimsuit season, I don't care. I'm going to wear a swimsuit and swimming is amazing for compression. But yeah, I have lots of loose skin on my legs. It looks, I think Emma, that was your line, was a little bit like melted candle. The accurate description.
I definitely said that. I also definitely meant that. So, like I said, as a patient with hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos, and I was profoundly affected by my lipedema. 60 liters of lipedema removed left me with copious amounts of extra skin. And I do wear compression every day, all the time. Even in today's Manitoba, you can see me glistening in my unair-conditioned room. It is 33 degrees in here. But I'm having to get my skin excision done. It's for medical reasons. So my compression can't do its job because there's so much extra skin that just sort of folds over itself and hangs out that your skin is your lymphatic system. And so I'm ending up with swelling in the lower leg and feet, and not lymphedema, but this is specifically related to the fact that I'm still in my surgical journey and waiting for that extra skin to be removed. So it depends. All right. Should we move on to the next question? Or Crystal, did you have more to add to that one? We're moving on.
Nope.
We are moving on. I want to make sure that we get, oh, this is a great question. Here we go.
How long is recovery time after surgery? Asks Glennis.
Crystal.
So that doesn't entirely depend. It's mostly 6 weeks for wearing garments day and night post-op to manage our swelling and our healing. It's also important to have MLD post-op. I know a lot of people are like, we spend so much money on the surgery, there's not enough money to do that post-op. But it's so important. It's such an important part of the healing process because we've got layers of skin trying to come back together there's places where it adheres to very toughly, and it kind of attaches, and they are called, Emma, what are they called? Adhesions.
Are you talking about adhesion? Yeah, you
Yes.
had it.
And they can become very painful. So that's something that MLD therapists can soften the scar tissue that's trying to lay down as a result of the trauma your body has experienced with surgery. Uh, but having really good aftercare really improves the result, uh, and and helps with the healing process. So it's 6 weeks of wearing garments, and it's another, well, not another, but like an 8 week to 10 week total where you really start feeling like you're really back to just, there's no little pains, there's no like discomfort putting on your compression. Your skin is actually numb for a really long time. There's a lot of nerve damage that happens with this type of surgery. But within a year, a lot of that well, within 6 months, a lot of it comes back, but within a year, I found most of it returns. There's very little place, maybe even no places where I still have maybe a little bit of numbness, mostly in my lower legs.
Was it the same for you, Angel?
Yeah, the MLD is so important. It's amazing that how just getting off the table after an MLD session that your legs will already feel lighter and you haven't done, it's not like you've gone to the washroom and peed out a bunch of fluid or anything like that. It's just them breaking up the fascia, that scarring, it's mind-blowing how much better you can feel. And can be painful when they do that. Like your early days of MLD is super gentle, but like around maybe like week 4 is when they start to really can get intense, and it hurts a lot, but it's so worth it. And it's a short amount of time. It's a 1 hour appointment. Yeah, the skin, like I'm about 4 months post-op on my back, and I think like just on your, like below my bra to my waist, like that's a lot of nerve endings in there, and so that skin is still tender. So it's not like a muscle pain. It's just like, it's really tight when I get up in the morning. That skin is sort of numb, but also painful. It's a weird sensation, but yeah, still going strong with that. And then for working, like if you're able, it depends on what type of job you have. Like I work from home. This is my home office. So I was able to work from the sofa with my legs elevated because I went back to work 3 weeks post-op leg surgery, and I could not sit at a desk all day with my legs down. Ooh, that would have been so much swelling and painful. I tried to do like an hour here or there, and even that was a lot. So for probably the first 2 weeks, I mostly worked from the sofa with my legs up. No.
Yeah. For me, it's always 8 weeks. I didn't know it was always 8 weeks until my husband was like keeping track of it surgery to surgery. And he's like, Emma, this is week 5. Week 5 is the week where you think you're better. And then you overdo it. And then your life sucks until week 7. What I can tell you is that there seems to be like a consistent trajectory. With the exception of a skin excision surgery, those are a different animal. And we can talk about that. But for the lipedema reduction surgery specifically, it was always week 1, moment to moment, just deciding if you want to be awake or asleep or in tears or reading a book or whatever. And by week 2, you're moving, you've traveled back from another country, you've done 6,000, kilometers over the ocean, you're feeling fairly inspired, still sleeping a lot, still in a fair amount of pain, still might be on the regular and daily pain medication. Usually by the time you're week 2, it's just Tylenol and Advil at that point, depending. In week 1 of surgery, you'll very likely be on stronger medication than that, depending on what hospital you're in. They might give you narcotic pain medication to manage that. And then, yeah, weeks 3 and 4, I don't know, the trajectory is just you're really, really swollen and you feel a little bit like the blueberry girl. And getting on the vibration plate, going to MLD, walking. I always wait until my wounds are fully healed. And the minute that they're healed, I'm in the water. I'm in the pool 6 days a week, not doing anything really super entertaining, but just like if you walk with the water, it acts like compression. It also just really helps to stimulate decongesting your tissue. So by the time you get to 8 weeks, it's kind of like childbirth. You forget where you've been and you go, I could do that again.
Yeah, that's accurate.
All right.
What else we got in the
We got more
box?
questions. I still don't see Dr. Goldstein, so I do apologize to our viewers. This is our first attempt at a live stream, and so we might be having some sort of technical issue, but if we can get him on another call, we absolutely will.
Yes.
All right, so let's go here.
Erica asks, do you also remove the excess skin on the ankle or calves during the surgery? Who wants to take that?
I can take this one because I asked this question. So on my calves, because I had 23-inch calves, so just below the knee, like 23 inches around. Now that they're not that size, I have literal handfuls of skin that can fold back and forth. The surgeon who's going to do my skin excisions had said that it wasn't necessarily a good idea to remove the skin down that far. I also had, as many lipedema patients do, the lipomas on the ankles, which are benign fatty tumors that exist on the outside of the ankles and can often interfere with wearing shoes. Those were removed, and now I have like these little skin pockets. The reality is that there's just going to be some extra skin that just cannot be safely removed. You have lymphatic channels that run behind the calves. And I don't know, my surgeon didn't seem jazzed about the idea of removing it. I don't know if I was going back to my German team, if they might have a different opinion because they're much more comfortable with a lipidemic body. But that's going to be a surgeon to surgeon, patient to patient consideration. And there's no hard and fast answer on yes or no with that. All right. More questions? More questions?
Yeah, more questions.
More questions. Go for it.
Andrea asks, can the fat come back after a surgery? Is there any information on this? That's always a question that gets asked. Who wants to chime in? Crystal, you want to jump in on that one?
Sure. I get asked that question all the time when people find out about my surgeries. And yes, it can. Depending on where you're at, if you're having more children, if you're going to go through menopause, there's always a chance that your body is going to create more fat, or the ones that you have left are going to grow. But it's such a non-concern when I think about where I am right now and where I was 2 years ago. My life is completely different. And some people will never have progression. They'll be a stage 1 their whole entire lives. Some people will progress really quickly at certain times in their lives. Some people will be, by the time they're 25, be almost at a stage 4. There's no telling. There's always a possibility, but everybody's journey is really specific to them. What the hormonal changes that happen, during those times in our lives. I'm looking at menopause straight in the face. She's coming for me. And I don't know what that will look like. I know, like, my bum is still really large, and I have pictures on the Way to Lipedema again, if you want to check that out. I still have some discomfort in my bum. But if I need to have another surgery, in 5 or 10 years or 15 years, or maybe I don't, maybe menopause works out okay for me. And, I eat Mediterranean low inflammatory foods. I exercise. I do things that will benefit my body long term. Maybe I won't progress that much. My mother hasn't progressed since she had kids. Her weight went up and down, but her lymphedema kind of stayed stagnant. But it's really hard to say. It could definitely not the lymphedema I had removed, obviously, but yeah, I could end up having more lipedema in the future. But I just have to deal with that when the future comes.
There are
Anybody else want to jump in?
studies. Yeah, I don't know if Angel was gonna cover this, but there are currently it's a 12-year retrospective study. So that was done at 4 years, at 8 years, and then at 12 years, where patients who had lipedema reduction surgery were surveyed to find out if their mobility remained improved, if they had had progression beyond their surgeries, if they had experienced improved quality of life, and how long lasting was that. And the study that they showed us pretty clearly that even 12 years later, and they keep revisiting this again, that 86% of people were still experiencing improved quality of life and improved ability for mobility and decreased pain at 12 years out. So Crystal's totally right. Your body, it's been wild before, it could be wild again. There are lots of things that we can do once we know we have lipedema to try and manage our inflammation, because this is an inflammatory loose connective tissue disorder. And so doing things to prevent major fluctuations in your weight. So to whatever degree you're able to do that. For some of us, that means being on a Mediterranean or rare adipose diet or an anti-inflammatory diet. For others of us, it might mean being on a GLP-1 medication like Ozempic or Mounjaro to decrease the inflammation in our body and prevent us from getting to a place where we could have rapid weight gain. For others, it would just be, using that newfound mobility to stay really active in addition to those other things, doing your MLD consistently, even when you're not post-op, and just looking after yourself to the best of your ability, and being prepared emotionally for the possibility that you may need more surgery at some point in your life, because there is no cure for lipedema right now. Lipedema is a genetic disease. It's yours for life, and it's something that can be managed, but not cured. So we still treat cancer, even when we know cancer might come back. And there's still validity to treating lipedema, even if lipedema might come back.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add to that. So I get asked that question a lot also. And I explain it as it ran rampant in my body unknown for 35 years. So from puberty till the time I was diagnosed. So for the surgeries for me was like a reset. And so now that I know about it, I do definitely not all the conservative treatments, because it can just be overwhelming. But, I wear compression daily. I use vibration plate. Like I do a lot of things that I never did before I was diagnosed. So I am working to keep it under control as much as I can.
All right. There's a couple
What
of questions.
else?
Yeah, oh, there's more. I'm going to put them up and then just answer them super succinctly and move past them because we did address them. So Glennis here is asking, how did you get insurance to cover you? And similarly, Erica is asking, how do we get Manitoba Health coverage for the surgery? How did you get it? Who did you write to? So in addition to the fact that this is well documented on a blog that I started called Life Beyond Lipedema, which you could look that up, I have promised Holly that we will do another call with she and I at a very near future point, and we can discuss the complexities of applying for coverage and the current situation in Canada, which is that we're being universally denied coverage. And that is fundamentally the reason why Lipedema Canada is sitting in front of you right now, is because we came together as patients who have experienced the system firsthand, and we're all moving through our health journey in a place where we felt we could take on something more. And we've come together now to try and improve the situation for people across Canada by advocating that to the governments that this should be an insured service. There's lots of nuances to that conversation, and we are not going to get into it in this particular call, but let's pretend that was like a teaser for the I want to know more things about how you did the thing. Does that work for everybody?
Great.
Okay, let's move to the next question. This is more of a statement, but it's an excellent statement. Holly, you see that? Do you want me to read it?
Yeah, you read that one. It's a lot of words.
Sandra Zed says LipoProtect, which is the insurance we talked about that exists for getting coverage in other countries for surgery. Yes, that insurance is covered for 5 European countries, but forget the 5. There are ways around it. Okay, you have my attention, Sandra. 1, a doctor can list his European address as yours. Okay, gives me a little insurance fraud palpitations, but I'm with you still. The second one is that if you are a holder of an EU passport, well, that's an interesting consideration. So this is totally off topic. And if this is a problem, someone hold your hand up and be like, stop. But for any of you who have Irish descending or Scottish descending grandparents, for those countries in particular, you are eligible if you have a first or second generation relative in the EU. And a lot of us are actually eligible for a second passport. So for the cost of $600 to get your Irish passport, that's cheaper than the insurance. I might go through the paperwork. That seems like a really roundabout way to get healthcare, but I have done more things to get healthcare than that. So, Angel? You look like you had a
I
thought.
think I think it's one thing to pay for insurance. It's another thing to actually be covered in the situation that you need it. So
Yes.
just because you sign a contract and you pay for those insurance premiums, it doesn't mean that you're actually covered. And anything that, like the surgeon putting his address, those types of things, like that gets you in the door. But if you actually had an incident, insurance companies really try not to pay. And so I would be really concerned about them.
Yeah, I'm I'm with Angel on that one. Okay. Oh, here's another great question. Um, Holly?
Do you, LM, do you have to be under general anesthesia in Europe? Can you have a choice?
Yes. Yes, you have a choice. Um, some surgeons uh, sort of universally prefer that their patients are under general anesthetic for a variety of reasons, and others have the opportunity, whether you're in a hospital or a clinic, to have it done under local anesthetic. There's always reasons why someone might not be a candidate for a general anesthetic. And so I don't know if there are surgeons that have done that procedure under other types of anesthesia. I don't know. Have you guys ever heard about anyone doing it under a spinal or an epidural or just under local?
I have not, no. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah. Um, but yes, you can choose your surgeon based on your anesthetic preference. If you're one of those people who feels that general is not right for you, or you're scared of it, or whatever your personal reasons might be, there are definitely surgeons in all of the countries who are lipedema specialists who offer a variety of treatment options. So that would be one of the questions to add to your consult list and find out, does that surgeon offer the anesthetic choice that you're looking for? So, Crystal, do you have anything to add on that one? No?
No.
Are the kids in the room with us? Okay, more
I just
questions. Here
want to
we
say,
go.
can I just jump in here about
Yeah, go.
just being under general? One thing that did freak me out a little bit was the idea behind the catheter. I just didn't know what to expect on that. And I was just, like, I really feel like that was sort of giving me the biggest worry out of it all. And it is actually, oh, look at, see, there's a question of catheter. Perfect. I so appreciated the catheter because your first look, which sounds super weird obviously, but your first day, like, so you get out of surgery and then even the day after you still have the catheter in, and especially if you're have your legs done, then you're not having to get up to go to the washroom and deal with compression and pulling them over your super sore legs. So to have that grace period where you don't have to do that, and you need to be drinking a lot of fluids, and they can also keep an eye on you by having that the bag that they can check how much is coming out. So and taking it out when you're awake is like nothing, like it's zero pain at all. So I just yeah, it was a nervous point for me, and it was definitely super appreciated. So, and nothing to be nervous about.
And toileting can be tough post-op with pain meds and things like that.
Oh,
Uh,
yes.
So, and that tends to be a time when it's easier to pass out when going to the toilet. So, having, especially with larger volumes, because there's a large change in your blood pressure when you um, get up and move around and when you lay down. And so, yeah, it is quite a roller coaster.
I
And
wouldn't fear the
take your
catheters.
compression. Oh, go ahead.
Ooh, sorry, I was just going to say, I mean, I'm speaking from the nurse perspective, but also having had catheters multiple times for all these surgeries and surgeries before that, you have so many bigger things to worry about. I promise you, it's not going to be as big of a concern as you think it is. It's weird to have a foreign body, and it's a very personal area, but the reality is that they're going to put that catheter in once you're under general anesthetic to manage your bladder while you're in surgery, and then to measure your output volumes afterward for your safety. And as soon as you're able to get up and walk around, so the sooner you're able to safely ambulate and move around, the sooner you can ditch that catheter. For some of us, there's good reason to keep it. I know for my skin excision surgeries, where I was absolutely not able to care for myself or move properly, bless the catheter. Bless the catheter. So, um, yeah, okay. More questions? More questions?
Yep,
Moving
we got
right
time. We
on.
got time.
We do. So you guys keep throwing your questions in there because we have another 20 something minutes and Here we go. Oh, this
Be,
is the bruising question.
yeah, because we tend to bruise easily. Were you badly bruised? All the pictures show that kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's worse because we bruise easily. I mean, I would think it is, and I did wonder that. Um, I, you guys, I mean, I saw some of you guys post op, so being like a shade of purple, like the bottom of the screen in every area you were worked on, is not uncommon. So the bruises look terrifying, but they don't feel the way they look. I know that I said that earlier in this call. Um, Unlike a bruise where you like got punched or contacted something, when you touch it, it's not tender in the same way. It's sort of more like globally tender because the whole area was worked on. Um, these surgeries are not for the faint of heart. Your entire area that was worked on is a wound bed. And so even though the incisions might only be this big, the area underneath that was affected is global. And so um, expect bruising that lasts for, I was bruised till week 4 most of the time. What about you guys?
I healed really quick. Like probably by week 3, mine were all gone.
Okay.
And it got quicker every time as my lymphatics healed and start to work better. My next surgery, it was even quicker and quicker. I think the last surgery, in less maybe 2 weeks, all my bruising was gone. It was amazing.
Did you get the
I was
hemocitrin staining? Or sorry, Angel, and so, sorry.
Yeah, I was probably around like almost week 4 when like it was yellow bruising at that point. And I did have that staining on my calf. And I still have, so my calf surgery was or like my fronts was my first surgery. So that was a year ago in May. And it's fading now. It's still there a little bit, but I just do have a bit of that staining on my shin.
Yeah.
But people always ask after surgery, like once you're all healed up, that's all gone. Of course, the person mentioned people with lipedema bruise easily, tend to, most people do. So have you found that to be different now since the surgeries?
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. Profoundly. It's the weirdest. I don't have a reason to explain it to you, but like for those of us who are familiar with finding random bruises all over your body with no causal reason, even now when I contact something and I know for sure I'm going to get a bruise, my bruises are nowhere near as large and as scary looking. And as a whole, I almost don't have random bruises anymore. I would love to know, well, if we can get a doctor on who can explain to us how that works, how that changed. I would love that answer.
I'm like, is it because we don't run into as many things?
No,
Like,
Okay.
a little bit.
I
Yeah.
mean, so
Very
now we're in a
similar.
chicken and egg situation.
like honestly, I can't remember the last time I had a bruise.
I have like 5, 6 right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think the last time I had a bruise was like from legitimately running into a turnstile in London on my way to my 7th surgery. I zigged when I should have zagged, and I took the turnstile straight in the thigh. And when I showed up at the surgeon, they were like, "This is really bad." I was like, "Don't worry, this one I earned." So, um, okay, let's throw some more questions up into here. Okay, so this is
But
a
you have to
longer
read
one.
that one. That's a
I
long
got you.
one. You read it.
Laura is asking, sorry, I missed out if this was already asked. Does anyone know if there is help in this country at all for us lipedema people, or any coverage if we can actually get a diagnosis? Yes, and no, and yes. Yes, there is help for people in this country. There are doctors who are starting to learn more about lipedema. There are nurse practitioners and physiotherapists, and there are pathways that if you feel like you have lipedema, you could get diagnosed. Start with your family doctor. Let's just at least start a conversation with them. And if that doesn't work and they're not able to understand, or you get a lot of pushback, um, I can just talk about what worked for me and then maybe put it to the panel. But there was no path when I got diagnosed. It was a matter of getting diagnosed by the international doctors after I had figured out that that's what I had, getting them to affirm what I had said. I consulted with like 7 or 8 different doctors without telling them that I had met the others, and they all universally came back with the same diagnosis, the same stage, and the same type. And they all wrote letters. And every one of those letters dictated exactly that, what my diagnosis was. I brought all of that documentation with me to my family doctor, who was not in any way informed about lipedema, and was really quite hesitant not rude, but just really hesitant to affirm that diagnosis because they just didn't know anything about it. And they didn't want to be responsible for assigning a diagnosis to me. So I was able to find one of my Manitoba doctors who took all of those letters and said, yeah, yes, you do have that. That does make sense. So there are ways around the diagnosis issue, and Lipedema Canada is working hard to network with patients across the country. So one great way, if you're not sure, is to get onto our Facebook page. So Facebook.com/Lipedema Canada, and there's a private support group, Lipedema Canada Support. Go in there and tell us where you are, and very often patients will tell you which doctors they're seeing and who can help you with the diagnosis. I'll answer the coverage question briefly, which is there are some provinces currently which offer some services. So in Ontario and Quebec, you might be able to get some coverage for compression. If you have comorbid lymphedema, you might be able to get coverage for MLD. In the province of British Columbia, they have been known to cover the surgery, but only with surgeons who are not lipedema specialists, who are just plastic surgeons directly within the province. And it's on a case-by-case basis, and there's no hard and fast rule on who's getting covered for what. So how did you guys manage the diagnosis hurdle?
I was first diagnosed by a physiotherapist, so I Googled painful fat and discovered lipedema, and then all the Facebook groups and all of that. So then I went to a physiotherapist in Winnipeg who confirmed it. Then I talked to my doctor about it, who was not at all familiar with it, but she did agree to refer me to Dr. Janae, who's a vascular specialist in Winnipeg. And so that was really my official diagnosis, was through him.
Crystal?
I discovered it through a documentary that Catherine Sayo made called Lipedema, the disease they call fat. It was clickbait on my Facebook, and I sat through the 52 minutes, and my mind was 100% blown. I was like, all the shoes fit, every last one of them. And I dove deep into conferences where anybody talked about lipedema. What do we do? Like, because now I have a diagnosis. Now this changes everything. I can get treatment. This all makes sense. But then I discovered very quickly that I've already done almost all of the conservative measures other than compression garments, just by trying to manage my pain for years and years and years. And my doctor's been with me throughout that whole process. So they have seen me struggle, and we didn't talk about weight anymore because I'd done everything they asked me to do. But I yielded very, very little result.
Yeah.
So when I came to her with this, I came with the US standard of care had just came out. So I went through it and I highlighted everything that I had done thus far, and how that has affected my my pain and my mobility, and what type of successes or not that I'd had. And she felt confident after going through that list with me and starting compression therapy to make that diagnosis. And I did get a letter from the MLD clinic in my city. He had experience, he knew about this, and he can't diagnose me, but he did send an email to my doctor and told them how I fit the criteria, and that it was teamwork. It was absolute teamwork. People reaching out to other people, making connections, and everybody's a little bit scared and nervous in the beginning because nobody wants to step on anybody's toes. And he's like, I'm not a doctor, but he's the only one who has heard this word before.
That's
Right?
familiar.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I went about it, bringing some information to my doctor, going through the information, and taking some time.
I think that our website can help with that. We see a lot on the in the community that now, because of the Lipedema Canada website, they're taking the brochure, taking some information to the doctor, to their GP, and educating them, which is, I think, quite helpful. For me, I found out because going down that whole research rabbit hole, but it was my hormonal change that led me there, perimenopause. And once I started looking into that, I saw this connection to high estrogen and then lipedema and just kind of one thing after the other. And then I saw the pictures of legs that looked exactly like my mom's legs and exactly like my legs. So that's what led me there and to my GP and with the information and down that road. I did try to get a referral, and I'm still on the list for the vascular surgeon here in Ottawa, but it's apparently, I'm told now, a 3-year wait, if not more.
Wow, it's a long time to wait.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw up another question here. Connie is asking us, can you get both your arms done at once? Yes. In fact, I don't know anyone that just does one. I have heard of them doing just one leg at a time. Like I've seen that online, which is, I think that one's curious. But yes, you can have both your arms done at once. So I've now had 3 arm surgeries. My arms were really, really, really big. And so the first surgery was to debulk the first 5 liters. And then the second surgery, they debulked another 6, 8, I can't even remember, 8 liters off the arms. And then the third time they went in was to do scar revision. Sorry. So the second surgery was the skin excision on the arms. So that's a relatively fresh scar. And then when they went in for the third surgery, they had to take another 4 liters off the arms and fix the scars. So yes, you can get your arms done at once. You guys all had your arms done as well. Yes? Because you were all type 3, 4.
Yeah, arms and abdomen was the same surgery.
Yes, they did my abdomen with surgery 6. Yeah. I lost track.
Mine was 3. Yeah.
Yeah, we were there. Okay. All right. Throwing up more questions. Another question from Connie, just because it's in the sequence here. Connie is asking, I am trying to lose weight before I'm even able to talk to a surgeon. Will having loose skin be bad for the surgery? This weight loss before surgery thing comes up a lot. Angela, do you wanna touch on this one?
I just know that the surgeon that we all went to did not recommend trying to lose a bunch of weight before surgery. The only requirement was just to wear compression 23 hours a day for the 6 weeks leading up to surgery. Maybe like take iron supplements, like a few things like that. But that team preferred that you try to stay stable in your weight going into surgery.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super important to, I mean, all of us, we all know this from our lived experience, but also from the literature. Lipedema fat is very difficult to reduce through diet and exercise. And while a lot of us definitely still have other fat on our bodies that we might be able to lose, the questions about losing weight before surgery, depending on the method you're using, you have to ask yourself, is that sustainable? Are you going to be well nourished when you go into a post-operative period, or are you managing to lose weight from severely calorie restricting yourself? Are you doing it in a way that's going to be sustainable post-op if you're not in the gym 6 days a week? And it's those big fluctuations in our weight where the research is showing us that that's where the progression is happening. And so it's worth considering if you've already been trying to lose weight and it hasn't been working. There isn't going to be some magic number that you get to before you're eligible for surgery. If your mobility is impacted, I mean, the surgeons are telling us pretty consistently that the earlier we can intervene, the better. And so it would be a worthwhile conversation with your doctor and with your prospective surgeon to find out what they think, if that's right for you, if that's something you should even be focusing on right now. Weight loss comes later is what our surgeon tells us, and it does. It does.
If we get to talk to Dr. Rolston, I'll definitely ask him that question though.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We get lots of questions about weight and surgery. I mean, did you guys also have this sort of idea that if they were taking 14 liters, which weighs whatever 20 something pounds, that you would get on the scale and somehow be 20 something pounds lighter, but that just never, it never matched. It never happened.
That's so weird. Yeah.
It was so weird. There was no science to it. Crystal, did you have that too?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I expected more, but
Yeah.
I didn't, in the end, I didn't care because I just felt I just could do everything that I wanted to do with no pain.
Totally.
But I thought, yeah, like I thought, oh, well, maybe like every liter, probably 2 pounds. So the
2.2
math
pounds,
said that
technically. Yeah.
I should lose like 80 pounds, but
Right. Well, like
I
that's what
lost
bothered
like
me.
35.
Yeah. That was the part that confused me is I was like, but mathematically, if the weight has been, it was like a magic trick. It was like, well, if it's gone, how do we account for where did it go? Like, anyway, it doesn't correlate. So
Yeah,
the
No.
scale is not an accurate measurement of your success as a lipedema patient towards getting your mobility and life back. It's just not.
no. It is nice to weigh like post-op just to sort of see if you're retaining fluid or not. You can see those like fluctuations. But like once I'm beyond post-op, I don't really weigh a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I weigh a lot, but I don't weigh often. So I am down at like 60 pounds and since my first surgery, and I've had 50 liters removed. So,
Yeah. I'm down 70
Not bad.
pounds and I've had almost 60 liters removed. But I can't tell you what because I was
Yeah.
also put on a GLP-1 medication um, as a preventative method related to my lipedema to reduce inflammation in my body at the exact same time that I started my surgeries. So I will never know. And frankly, it doesn't really matter to me because my mobility is so increased and improved that it's not about the numbers. Like I said, I'll always be a curvy 5'9" kind of glamazon looking girl. We're running low on time, so I'm going to just get through some of these last questions real quick. Alicia, I hope I pronounced that right, is asking if we bring our own compression garments. The answer is it depends. Um, for the US surgeon, no, they like to provide just cosmetic compression garments, which were in no way adequate to manage post lipedema surgery. And I ended up with seromas and hematomas because of those like very light, not compression style garments. And for the German surgeons, they instructed us all to wear 20 to 30 millimeter of mercury class 2 custom flat knit compression 6 weeks before and for 6 weeks after 23 and a half hours a day. Um, so compression is a very doctor dependent question.
So 20 to 30 is what they're saying, or 30 to 40 for surgery?
So technically the answer is class 2. And the reason why this gets confounded is because each different manufacturer of compression, their 20 to 30 may be called something else. So some people's class 2 is actually like whatever it was, 25 to 35, but another person's class 2 might only be 15 to 25. So it's brand specific. And so they want you in a class 2 garment because that's going to give you the most accurate sort of middle ground, is how it was explained to me by our compression specialists at Lipedema Canada. So bring your own compression, ask your surgeon, definitely wear your compression. Okay, we're rounding down the last 2 questions here.
Did any of you experience hyperpigmentation after surgery? Did it go away?
Yeah, the hemocitrin staining is what it's also called, and I still have some. It's hemocitrin staining is from the iron in the bruise and the blood products, basically. So you get these big bruises all over your legs, and some of the iron stays behind, and it does eventually metabolize out, but it can take a long time. I only have it sort of on the inner thigh, and maybe a little bit like shadowy on the bum, a little bit. What about you guys?
I don't think I have any, but I might. I don't think I do.
Haven't
I
checked
don't think,
everywhere.
yeah, I haven't checked everywhere. I definitely have still some on my shin. Yeah, but it is faded a lot.
And was that from this last surgery, or how long ago was that?
No, that was from last May. It was from my first surgery. It was on my shin, so surgery 1. Yeah.
Okay. I found the
You
areas
got
on
one?
myself. Yeah. The areas on
One more
myself
point.
that were the worst is where the bruising was the worst. So,
Mm.
okay, this last question I can throw up and we can answer real quick. When getting surgery done in Germany, are you given a list of items you're expected to bring with you? technically you could show up for surgery with just your clothes, your pajamas, and your compression, and you would be fine. If you're going to an inpatient facility, they'll have everything you need. But I know that there's lots of other things that you might want to bring with you, and we are actually addressing this. Stay tuned for our posts coming up in the month of July, where we'll be doing the Surgery Survival Guide, a series of blogs that include blogs broken down by each of the body parts that were acted on and all of the items that we found helpful in those surgeries, and a shopping list that you can find in there, which we are all currently working on writing. So that is an excellent question. You can get a shopping list from us, and this is collaborated with from hundreds of other lipedema patients who advised us as well. So those are all the questions that we had in the live. So I turn it back over to Holly.
Yeah, we're just about on time though too. Maybe we'll speak with Dr. Rothschild another time, hopefully. But thank you all for sharing your stories. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for sending in questions. It's been a pleasure to celebrate Lipedema Awareness Month by doing this with you. And as noted earlier, we're going to send out a link to the recording and well, we got to all the questions, but if you have anything else that comes afterward, let us know. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I have. Have a wonderful night.